The Early Weigh-In podcast is back, and we are at the Apex this Saturday. Yet again, another middleweight main event. We got Roman Dolidze taking on the surging, 8-fight winning streak, I think. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, killer fight. Winner puts himself a fight or two away, man, from a title shot. And in their co-main event, Steve Erceg, once minutes away from winning the flyweight strap, falling on hard times a bit, taking on O'Day Osborne here. It's 11 total fights for us to go through. As always, going to recap how we finished up last week, UFC Vegas 108. Continuing a good little streak for myself. I did hit Neil Magny at plus 170. Round two didn't really start the way I was liking it, but it ended the way that we like to see it. Cash that there for 1.7 units. Hit a nice little parlay that came through extremely easy, not much sweat to it at all, with Rosa dominating rounds 2 and 3 from the mat, Nakamura with the round 1 body shot KO. And then fight doesn't go the distance, and Ketlin Souza versus Pierre Rodriguez. I told you we'd cash 2 women's unders to start the night the last couple of weeks. Felt like going into it, we might do for some aggression. That's what happened. And then Nick Klein versus Pulev, man, the pace that fight started at, felt really good about that under pretty much the entire time. So happy to hit that 2.99 units, pretty much a 3-unit night. And I'll toss it over to you. Bit of a loss, man, but like I told you, after 17-something units in 3 weeks, it was bound to happen.
Yeah, I was due for sure. Neil Magny stopped the bleeding for me. I had a unit on him at plus 170. That was nice. And then really I just went heavy on a fighter whose opponent came in 5 pounds over. I had 3 units total on the Felipe Bunez versus Rafael Estevam fight. Took a shot on Bunez, big dog. Wish it could have gone my way, but is what it is. That was minus 3 units total after that fight ended. We talked about the fight doesn't go the distance in the Souza versus Pierre Rodriguez fight. That one looked like a plus 220, maybe even like a plus 320, after the fight played out. And then I also had Klein by sub round 1. If I could guarantee that my plus 1100 stabs would take the back and at least attempt a submission, I'd play those every time. So I'm not upset about that. I think the worst bet on my card, honestly, if we take the the variables out of the Estevam fight, is the Vallejos Danny Silva, Vallejos inside the distance at plus money. It was just one of those ones where it was a lot harder fight than I expected. Right. I think Vallejos is really good, but I just underestimated the toughness of Danny Silva. Ended up minus 3.8 units, and like you said, due for a regression, so I can get past it. Hoping to find some spots this week that I like. For the most part, this is just a card where we're looking to see, where the dogs are barking, because there's a lot of difference in these lines. The closest fight of the night is the one that we will start off with. In the light heavyweight division, usually these guys are fighting at 185 pounds, but this is a short notice fight that they've put together. Cody Brundage versus Eric McConaughey. Almost a guaranteed meme fight, dude. Like, some weird stuff is about to happen in this fight. Not a huge fan of McConaughey. He reminds me of Jared Gooden, where he's, decent everywhere, but I don't think he's good enough to get a win in the UFC. And I'm more than likely just going to bet against him anytime he's on a card. And I think that I'm probably in that same boat here with Cody Brundage. Brundage is only a minus 155, but the majority of the time that he's winning, he is winning inside the distance. And I think if I could get Brundage inside the distance at plus money, I'd be much more inclined to play that. After McConaughey's last fight against Ruzaboyev, it was kind of a glancing blow that caught him initially, and then his recoverability at 35 years old just didn't look that great. So here at short notice, up a weight class where I thought that he probably could have cut more weight at 185 pounds, everything's telling me that Cody Brundage is the side here. So I understand the line movement and the Brundage direction. And I would like to probably play Brundage inside the distance. No matter what, I'm not putting a ton of money on this fight because, some weird stuff's bound to happen.
Yeah, weird stuff stays happening in Cody Brundage's fighting career. Probably the weirdest outcomes of anybody on the roster. But I agree with you, man. I think it's clearly Cody Brundage here or past. The better fighter, the better striker, the better grappler. I trust him more at 205. I think he's just a bigger, better guy. McConaughey, I was kind of tempted on him against Ruzaboyev just because I don't think Ruzaboyev's that good, and I thought McConaughey could probably wrestle. But, yeah, man, came into that, laid an absolute egg, didn't look good. His regional tape's really not that good. At 35 years old, he's only 13 fights into his career. his teammate is on the card next week, and I kind of feel like, if I'm remembering correctly, it's kind of how he got that first semi-short notice shot. And it kind of seems like, teammates on the card next week. He's there to take another fill-in spot to fill up the card. So, yeah, I'm on the Cody Brundage side, but not too passionate about that fight whatsoever. Probably an easy pass for me. Gabriela Hernandez taking on Julija Stoliarenko at women's flyweight. Stoliarenko is extremely physical early in fights, but there's not many fighters you can really just classify as like a round one bust or, straight up round one submission, armbar bust fighter. But that's, Julija, man. She doesn't win any other way. If she doesn't get you out of there in round one via armbar, she's tough, but typically bad cardio, bad striking defense. And somebody as athletic as Gabriela hits as hard as she does, has the footwork, the big speed advantage. I'm not really super thrilled seeing a women's under juice the way it is, but if I were to play it, I was maybe thinking Gabriela round 2, round 3 props, because I do think early, she has to stay safe, but if she's able to draw it out a little bit, I think, again, the power, the athleticism, the cardio, the way she does sit down on some of her shots, she's super live down the stretch to get Stoliarenko out of there. So I like Hernandez 2-3 KO, my official pick.
With only 20% of Hernandez's fights ending by KO, I'm more inclined to lean the submission because that covers both of these girls' win probability in my head. You get it at plus 200. It's apparently the most unlikely outcome of this fight according to the odds, but I think that that's the only way that I touch this fight. I don't like the big favorite number in the Hernandez corner, and then I don't like betting on somebody who has one path to victory being first round sub on the Stoliarenko side. So fight ends by sub is probably how I look to play this at plus 200, but I might not play this at all, honestly. Moving up to the 170-pound division, we have Uros Medic taking on Gilbert Urbina. Wasn't impressed with Urbina's tape. Watched the Radke fight. I think a lot of people are watching the Radke fight and thinking that Uros Medic can do pretty much the exact same thing, and I tend to agree with them. The only thing that kind of worries me is Radke does have a little bit of wrestling in his back pocket where Uros Medic is striking or bust. If Gilbert Urbina can, implement some wrestling and get Uros Medic tired, I think that it could go differently. So that's why, unless I can find a really juicy prop, which they've come out, I'm not liking too much. I'm probably just going to lay off of this fight. This is not one of the fights where I'm looking to play a dog here. So Medic, I think he wins. I think he wins by knockout. Probably not going to play that, though.
Yeah, man. Not impressed with Urbina at all. I told you, outside of the Ultimate Fighter, this guy's fought. He's only fought more than once in a year outside of the Ultimate Fighter. Once since 2015. This will be his second fight this year, so he's as active as he's ever been. But you're right, man. You're not impressed with him. Doesn't seem to have a great gas tank. Kind of walks onto shots and doesn't have a good chin. If he doesn't get his grappling going, I think he's shit out of luck pretty quickly here. Medic is like minus 450, so he's not a guy that I think is a minus 450, an 80-85% type fighter. He doesn't have good cardio. He doesn't have a good ground game. He's a product of Alaska FC, so the competition leading up and even the wins that he has, a lot of them not great. Yeah, man. So I'm clearly on the Uros Medic side, not interested in playing Gilbert Urbina. I told you FanDuel had Uros Medic knockout, round 1 knockout plus 190. And honestly, I might be able to get behind that, man. I really might. So that's ultimately how I see the fight going down. Might see that, not trying to force too much, but I feel pretty confident in how this one's going down. Fight I'm also confident, man, at women's bantamweight, Jocelyn Edwards taking on Priscilla Cachoeira. Look, Jocelyn's like 5-6 years old, younger, coming into her prime. She's got the size, the reach. I mean, all the advantages everywhere, man. The striking, the cardio, the grappling. I don't see how she loses this fight, really. Cachoeira, I think, can be hurt, can be put on her back, and Jocelyn's really rounding her game out. And I think if she goes to that ground game, she could even submit Priscilla Cachoeira. So I got Jocelyn parlayed up with somebody later in the card. I feel super confident, man, that she gets the job done pretty easily.
Yeah, at this point in Priscilla's career, I tend to agree. Priscilla's a dog, so she usually fights for your money, but I do think that she's kind of covered everywhere here against Jocelyn Edwards. Edwards just more path to victories. I think she probably should get the job done. Not looking to trust 15-6 Jocelyn Edwards, though, at that price tag. So it's a layoff spot for me, but I do think that she gets it done. Staying in the bantamweight division, Elijah Smith taking on Toshimi Kazama. Kazama's like a do-or-die fighter, man. He goes out there, he tries to get the job done, and if it doesn't happen, then he gets finished. Elijah Smith, 22 years old, so still relatively new to the game, but he's an athletic freak and probably has a pretty high ceiling, certainly a higher ceiling than Kazama. I do think that he, finds a finish here after going to decision in his last few, and I think that he gets the job done. Not really sure how to play this fight. I think Elijah Smith covers him, so probably inside the distance, but I'm pretty sure we're talking about minus 200 if we go 200 or more if we go Smith inside the distance. So maybe as a parlay piece, as I do think that he's just going to outclass him here. But again, just not a spot where I like the dog, and I'm not sure about the price tag on a 22-year-old. So pass for me.
Yeah. So I played the under 1.5 at minus 132 here. Kind of kicking myself, man, because I really wanted to play it at Pick'em's a day or so ago. Wanted to look into it a bit more and kind of got up to the minus 132s. But I think it should be minus 200, at least minus 175, minus 185. Like you talked about, Kazama is an absolute do-or-die guy. Dude has like 1 or 2 wins over the 1.5 mark, gets finished like all 4 times under the 1.5 mark. And I just feel like Elijah Smith is twice the athlete, twice the striker, can compete in the wrestling, can get on top and land ground and pound. It's a guy like you talked about who's young, incredibly high ceiling, good wrestler. Could be mistaken, but I believe this is a guy whose dad was on The Ultimate Fighter or something. So he's been surrounded by martial arts and things his entire life. I just think there's such a significant speed and athleticism advantage, and Kazama walks himself onto punches. And so I played the under 1.5. I like Elijah Smith, knockout round 1. Speaking of another fight that I probably think gets finished pretty early, Julius Walker taking on Rafael Sakiera at 205. I watched that fight back with Alonzo Minifield. I don't want to make an argument that he really won it. But, dude, Julius Walker put up a hell of a fight for a guy who had 6 pro fights on a semi-short notice debut, dogged it out. I mean, Alonzo Minifield's got legitimate UFC wins. Has fought legitimate UFC-level guys. And Julius Walker really impressed me, man. Good athlete, long. I wish he knew how to use his range, was a little bit more confident in his striking, and I'd feel a bit more confident in him here. But he does kind of like to clinch and grapple and get on top of you. And that's kind of the one area that is the rumor, that Rafael Sakiera is kind of good at is on the ground, is the times we've seen him in the UFC, we've only got to see like a minute, 3 minutes or something of his fight game. And it's all been on the feet where he really can't take a punch. But again, Julius is not a guy who really sits down and believes in his punches and his striking. And so I feel like this is the tricky fight of the night. I bet Rafael Sakiera against Modestas Zukauskas just because I didn't think Modestas was a minus 400 fighter. And I really kind of feel the same way about Julius Walker, but I'm done betting Sakiera. Dude hasn't shown me anything. But what I do think is if this fight does get into the grappling and the clinching, that we could see it slip over, the 1.5 instead of being the under 1.5. So this one is the one that I'm not touching this week, that I think I'm staying far away from. I'm still going to be on the Julius Walker side, but I think in terms of when that finish comes, it might not be as early as that Modestas and Ivo Aslan fight. So I'll go Julius Walker, but I'm going to go Julius Walker round 2 or round 3.
Yeah, so I think you're leaving money on the table, man. This is Sakiera's side all day for me. I mean, I agree he's not the best, but I do think that we're not getting a full picture of what he's capable of doing inside the octagon. And Julius Walker, I think we've seen it multiple times. This is a young guy who took a short notice fight against Alonzo Menifield and probably overperformed. I watched back some of his fights, especially against the Niall Bartling guy. Niall Bartling took his back like 3 times in the first 2 rounds. And then ended up getting finished. But I think if you give Cerqueira the same positions, he probably does a whole lot better than Bartling. I just think that this is a pretty easy fight where the line at -600 is unjustified. And if I'm getting 5-1 on Rafael Cerqueira, it's I'd kick myself in the ass if I didn't touch it a little bit. So there's at least a 1-unit shot for me on Cerqueira. I think as long as I think I'm just going to sit on it until weigh-ins. But I hope this line keeps climbing, and it's for sure a spot where I feel like this is low level enough that the line is not justified no matter how you cut this. So sure, he might go out there and get starched, but I'd be surprised if he looks like a plus 500 against Julius Walker, who overperformed in his last fight. So I'm on the Cerqueira side, but really it's a line thing, not so much that his abilities to fight. So I'm on him for the pick and for the bet.
I like it.
Moving on to the main card opener, Eric Anders taking on Christian Leroy Duncan. I'm on Christian Leroy Duncan, but I'm pretty sure he let me down. I bet on him last fight, and he let me down a little bit. Let's see. I'm blanking on who he fought last.
It was Puliev.
Andre Puliev. I was actually on him against Gregory Rodriguez. That's what it was. I bet him to win by TKO against Gregory Rodriguez. I thought he was a much faster, cleaner striker. He could not find that chin of Gregory Rodriguez. Ended up getting grappled. And, hopefully he doesn't do the same against Eric Anders here, but Anders possesses the ability to grind on him and take away some of that athleticism. We've seen him do it in the past multiple times. But this does seem like another spot where it's somebody with a questionable chin taking on a much cleaner, faster striker in Christian Leroy Duncan. And so I am tempted to bet Christian Leroy Duncan by knockout probably. And, that's only plus 185. I don't love that. That's probably how I see this fight going. I might play it, but as of now, I'm probably laying off, dude.
Yeah, I don't know how this fight's going to go. Cause I can see that, Leroy Duncan is, at this stage, the much faster, the much cleaner athlete, and, will win every single minute at range. But that's not Eric Anders' game. He likes to get it on the inside and force that clinch and force the pressure. And so with him being slow and plotting the way he is, yeah, man, there's going to absolutely be openings for Duncan to sleep him. But anytime that Anders closed that distance, I feel like time's just going to be slipping and slipping away with Eric winning minutes on the cage. Eric was kind of a guy that going into tape, I kind of wanted to bet, honestly, just because I think Leroy Duncan fails to cover this type of price tag. I think he's a good space fighter, but I don't think he really likes a dirty fight, a grinding fight, and that's the type of fight that I could see Eric Anders giving him if he's going to have any success. But, man, getting dropped by Weidman. And I was on Eric Anders big in a parlay versus Jamie Pickett. To get dropped and hurt by Jamie Pickett in round 1, to have to win round 2 and 3, to clear decline for the Eric Anders side, man. We're talking about a 2-sport athlete, who played D1 collegiate football at Alabama, took a ton of repeated brain damage in football, so I wouldn't be surprised if the chin does just fall off one day. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like the decline's evident on the Eric Anders side, and it does feel like Christian Leroy Duncan's going to get this one done. So I just don't know if it's inside the distance, man, because like you said, he kind of just lets you down, fails to put a stamp on things sometimes. Moving up the card, dropping down to men's bantamweight, the other leg to my Jocelyn Edwards parlay is Gene Matsumoto taking on Miles Johns. Short and simple, man. I think Gene Matsumoto, being the younger guy, is clearly the one still improving at this point, has a whole lot more to his game, twice the volume. Miles John is extremely low volume. He's a jab. the occasional calf kick. I feel like all the offensive grappling's on the Matsumoto side. I almost feel all the knockout side, all the submission sides on the Matsumoto side. His grappling, his cardio on the back half of this fight should really win it against Miles Johns here. So yeah, I don't know how Miles Johns. I don't think Miles Johns could look anything past maybe like plus 110 here or plus 120, because if he wins, I think he wins off maybe stealing a big moment or two, but I still feel like he's going to be losing the fight up until all those moments. So I don't know. I feel like Gene Matsumoto is a clear favorite here, could look a massive favorite, and has all the advantages here. So Gene Matsumoto, Jocelyn Edwards, I think it's minus 129, laid it straight to winning unit. That's my parlay for this week.
So, this is a dog or pass spot for me. I think Gene Matsumoto is good, has a pretty high ceiling, but at 25 years old, I'm not really sure how he's going to come out looking after losing his first fight in his professional career against Rob Font. You even take it a step back before that, like the cards, it was written in the stars. Against Brad Katana, he made a really close fight that maybe shouldn't have been. 3 of the media scores scored that fight for Brad Katana, and it was a whole lot closer than he wanted to. It was for sure only a 29-28. Probably could have been a split decision. I do think that he was the rightful winner, but it's a game plan that I think that Miles Johns could definitely emulate. And I think that he's kind of getting counted out here because of his last performance against Felipe Lima, who we know is a really solid fighter. So I think that this is not necessarily a step up since he fought Rob Font, but this is another really tough fight for him, and I don't think he's going to blow Miles Johns out of the water. Give me Miles Johns here at the current price tag. Not sure if I'm actually going to get onto him, but that's certainly how I'm looking to play this fight if I'm touching it at all. Plus 260. Yeah, plus 260. That's definitely the way that I'd be looking to attack this one. Moving up to the featherweight division, Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez. I'm on the C-Rod side. I really like C-Rod's demeanor whenever he's in there. I like him as a fighter. Minus 240 isn't necessarily my favorite, but I think it's a pretty decent matchup. Fili hasn't looked the best in recent years. He usually likes to get fighters to the ground, and Christian Rodriguez is not the guy that you get to the ground very easy. And even when you do, he makes you work. He gets back up. Fili's gas tank is somewhat questionable, and I think that Rodriguez is in there for the full 15 minutes. So give me Christian Rodriguez here. I like him more as a fighter than I do at minus 250. So Rodriguez is the pick, but I don't think that I'm actually going to get there with my money.
I like T-Rod, man, as a fighter. Dude's cashed me a couple tickets. I bet him at plus 240 against Bashy. Think like plus 200 against Rosas Jr. I like the guy, but I think he does really, really well when guys want to come out here and offensively grapple and are willing to gas or young guys in their debuts. And that's not what you're getting with Andre Fili. With Andre Fili, you're getting a guy who's a UFC veteran, a guy who's got the length, the size advantage, who's the natural featherweight here as well, a guy who I think has a big clean advantage in boxing and things on the feet as well. I don't really think Christian Rodriguez is a 145er. Ultimately, I just really don't. And I can't get, like, no matter what I do, I'm okay with Rodriguez being a small favorite, but I can't get past Rodriguez anywhere north of 60% here. So Andre Fili plus 210, pretty easy pull for me. 1 unit shot this week. That's my dog shot. Jasmine Lucindo taking on Angela Hill. Prior to the first fight, man, this was the only fight where we could find somebody under minus 200 on any book. And I kind of feel like the Lucindo line's justified, like 15 years younger, man. I feel like she's the faster fighter. I actually kind of feel like, Angie Hill in a 3-round fight has really reliable cardio, but I kind of feel like Lucindo's also got extremely, extremely good cardio and can match it and can find her way on top, significant grappling advantage, durability advantage at this point in her career. So, minus 200 on Yasmin. I don't know if there's a lot of value left, but I'm okay with the line. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I pick her as the favorite here, or as to win this fight as well. Probably a justified favorite. I'm not laying that price tag on a women's fighter, and especially when you got Angela Hill. I know she's kind of the queen of losing split decisions, but God forbid this goes to split decision, and I'm holding a minus 200 ticket on Yasmin Lucindo. So pass for me, but I do think that she gets this done. I think she's in a better point in her career, and just can't trust Angela Hill right now. Moving on to the co-main event spot, Steve Erceg taking on Ode Osborne. Huge step down for Steve Erceg and a huge opportunity for Ode Osborne. He's really got nothing to lose in this spot. He's 13-8, probably the closest he's ever going to get to this high. This high level of an opponent, I think, before he gets cut. But I do think that he loses this fight, and I think it's a great bounce back spot for Steve Erceg. I think that his line is justified, and it's kind of gotten out of control with the line. Like, truth be told, we've talked about this. If John Jones was a minus 700 to half of the roster, I'm probably taking the opponent just because it's MMA. It's really hard to justify that line against anybody. But I do think that Steve Erceg is, going to win this fight. No matter how it happens, he's going to win this fight. So give me Steve Erceg. Ode Osborne, while he's fresh, I mean, he's really athletic, so there's possibility for a banana peel incident. But outside of that, Steve Erceg all day.
Yeah, I feel the same, man. Early on, like you said, Ode's fast, dude's athletic. And Erceg's been caught on the feet. He's been finished on the feet. And, a guy, where's your head at when you've lost 3 in a row? Granted, to really good competition, but where's your head at, And so the early numbers on Ode Osborne, TKO, pretty interesting because they're nice numbers. But Ode's a gasser, man, and I don't see anything different happening here. I actually see Steve Erceg probably trying to go to his grappling here some because Ode has no defensive grappling and it zaps the gas tank on him. So, yeah, I think Erceg gets this fight into round 2 or 3, starts to put a pace on him, whether it be on the feet with the boxing or the grappling. And I like Steve Erceg to probably get a late finish on Ode Osborne, man. But I'm confident in saying I think Steve Erceg gets the job done, bounces back. Into our main event, man, Roman Dolidze taking on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. I really like Fluffy's style, and I've bet on the guy a couple times. And being that this is 5 rounds, it really, really makes things tricky in the back half of the fight because my gut tells me that, especially at plus 270, the first 2.5 rounds here, man, Roman's really going to compete. I think Roman's the better striker. I think Roman's better in the clinch with knees, with elbows. We've already seen Fluffy weak to the body multiple times. Roman is a very dangerous submission artist. We've seen Fluffy had his back taken. We've seen Marcus Perez put him in Darce chokes. Dude, Roman Dolidze's out here sweeping guys, putting them in calf splicers. Like, he's a very, very talented guy. And if Fluffy is going to take him to the ground, dude, he's out here putting, like I said, Jack Hermanson in calf splicers, ripping Phil Hall's knee apart, when he gets put on bottom. So I think Roman Dolidze is an extremely dangerous fighter early on in a fight to be plus 270. And so I tossed a half unit on him because I do think there's a world where he comes out here and gets an early finish. But I have to be realistic about things that if we do slip over 2.5, if we do get to those championship rounds, I'm not counting out the durability of Roman. I think he's a tough son of a bitch, and dude's never been finished. But I do think that kind of pace for a guy who's as muscled up as Roman is, he's going to start to fade, man. There's not really been a guy who's offensively put that kind of pace on him like Fluffy's going to if he's still there. And so I did bet the over 2.5. I kind of feel like that covers me on the Fluffy side, and it's a much better line. And I profit, if we hit the over and Roman still loses, and if Roman gets an early finish, I still profit if we don't hit the over 2.5. So I feel like I've played this fight at a way I'm really, really happy with. But my gut tells me Roman Dolidze is going to get this done, and probably by finish in round 1 or 2. I just have a gut feeling, man, and so I've left it at 0.5, but I'm thinking about a Roman finish only bet that's DraftKings has out as well. So I think there's a ton of props that really are live and can hit on this fight that people can get on. But Give me the plus 270 dog. I bet him earlier in the weekend at plus 285, thinking Fluffy's going to get even more love. I mean, it still might be the case because we've seen crazy line movement this year. But, dude, yeah, give me Roman Dolidze. It's clearly dog or pass. I don't know how you could see it any other way.
Yeah, so I drafted Roman Dolidze in our fantasy league. I do think that he is the more likely to finish. And without getting greedy, you can still get plus 205 on decision no bet FanDuel for Roman Dolidze. And I think that that's probably how I'd be looking to play this fight. Winning over 2 units for a unit wrist is good enough for me. And I do think that when this fight hits the judges' scorecards, it's because Anthony Hernandez has been able to wrestle fuck him for 25 minutes. So,
Right.
Yeah, give me Roman Dolidze. I've never been a fan of Hernandez's midsection. He's gotten hurt to the body multiple times before. And truth be told, I think he's a little bit overrated. If it was just the mindset and the way that he fights, I do think that he's championship caliber, but he just doesn't have the physical attributes to match that. And I think that that's what's going to hold him back from ever touching the belt. I don't think that Roman Dolidze is ever going to touch the belt either, but I think in this matchup, he's getting a little undervalued here. So give me Roman Dolidze at plus 205, decision, no bet on FanDuel. I like the Dolidze side. Hope he gets me 4 points in the fantasy league.
Let's go, man. I dig it as well. With the late edition, I do believe we're back up to 12 fights this Saturday. A ton of chalk. Hopefully leads to some finishes. Would be exciting. Man, talk about exciting. We got next week. We got Hamzat versus DDP for the middleweight strap. Extremely pumped, ready to get into those fights. We'll be back next week to break all that down. See you guys later.
Peace.